Chapbook is a word more current in the United States. Pamphlet is the word they use to describe these in the United Kingdom. Chapbook is of course British in origin, but like many British terms still current in America, the British have forgotten it. The problem I have with the word pamphlet is that it could be used to describe one page folded over to make 4 pages. It's not substantial enough a term for what this is, 30 odd pages. We first ran the chapbook competition a couple of years before the banking crisis hit. It was a time when we had funds more readily available than the arts have now. So we were able to take a risk on running those competitions. We got some wonderful entries, we published a couple of great books, but it just wasn't paying for itself. So when we had to tighten our belts and cut back on our programs and conserve our core activities, the chapbook competition had to go for a while. I was able to revive it again 4 years ago. We had, myself and Jennifer, we'd honed our ability to run writing competitions. I think the profile at the centre had grown internationally. We got better at marketing. And so when we established the chapbook competition 4 years ago, made enough to cover the prize money, the production of the chapbooks, and even production of a couple of more chapbooks during the year, which is wonderful. Food for poetry. Many of us are fools for love. And, you know, you need to be a fool to be involved in poetry as well. There's no money in it. Great story about Paul Muldooney at Newcastle a couple of years ago, and this teenage boy put up his hand and said, "How do I get to be famous?" And Paul says, "Well, you know, not through poetry." Paul said, "In this room, okay, there's 400 or 500 people here in this room, I'm famous. But if I walk down Newcastle's main street, nobody will have a clue who I am." So you don't do poetry for fame either. And you only have to ask half the poets in the room about their failed romantic lives, and you know, you don't do it for attracting the opposite sex either. So you have to be a fool for poetry. So that's why we call the competition the Fool for Poetry competition. It's a memorable name, and it's growing in reputation now. And last year's second place winner, Maya Papa, her chapbook was selected as a UK Poetry Book Society choice, the first ever Irish publication to receive that honour. This year's winners are Molly Minturn and Bernadette McCarthy, and they rose to the top out of about 250 entries. The initial entries, the 250 entries, are read by me anonymously. I select 10 or 12, and then those 10 or 12 are presented to the current and ex-editors of Southward Journal, who at the moment currently stand as Leanna Sullivan, Matthew Sweeney, James Harper, Thomas McCarthy, and Mary Newman, a fairly distinguished set of editors, and they each, without consulting one another, assign scores to each of the manuscripts, and whichever 2 manuscripts score the highest, they usually win, and they have won so far. We just have one condition, that the competition is open to everyone, but one of the 2 winning chapbooks must be by a debutante. And of the 8 chapbooks we've printed in the current series, published in the current series, only one of them has not been by a debutante, in fact. The debutantes really are, you know, coming through in this competition. And I'm not surprised to hear that Molly has been trying to publish a manuscript in the States for a while, because, you know, this really did shine out. It's always interesting for me to look at the scores as they come in from the 5 separate judges who don't consult with one another. And occasionally you have, you know, the scores are all over the place. And it's interesting, again, you know, it's a salutary lesson in how, you know, success in literature is often down to taste. But this year, two poets selected were fairly consistent in their support, the support they garnered across the jury. And again, it's astonishing that in a competition that's open worldwide, which attracts entries worldwide, we managed to discover amazing talent in our midst. I mean, 12 months ago, I never knew Bernadette McCarthy wrote poems. I used to see her at poetry readings. She not only writes poems, she writes fabulous poems. It's amazing. And the competition this year also, one of the shortlistees is a young guy called James O'Leary, and the manuscript is just so wonderful. We're going to include him in our New Irish Voices chapbook series. It'll be published next April at the World Book Festival. Chapbooks seem to be getting reviewed more easily sometimes than full collections. It's been a wonderful project to be involved in. So we're going to have Bernadette McCarthy read first. Bernadette McCarthy comes from Convy, I think.
Convy.
I barely know what's happening outside the city boundary, so Convy.
Very important.
And lives in Kilmichael, County Cork. She's a doctorate in early medieval archaeology from UCC. Her poems have been published in journals including The Penny Dreadful, whose editors are here today, I see, Agenda, Causeway, Crano, The Lake and the Lilith's Wings. She's also had poems in the Irish Examiner. And in the anthology On the Banks, edited by Alana Hopkin, whose editor I see here today as well. So would you please give a warm welcome to Bernadette McCarthy.
Thanks, Pat. It cuts me and it cures me, the Arabic of my fathers, as the calamus bows to the gin of the Brizine, to rise again and dip into the ink of haggard, ditch and dyke. Strangers call it Babel, the Arabic of my fathers, idioms left rust in a gap like a turnip machine, and on a gate pier to nowhere, a quartz stone sits like cream, straight off the top of my father's rhetoric. Binar Camor or Nabua Harlar, another Gera lost, another Gera drowned. Yosh. So I'll just explain. That was the title poem of the chapbook Bog Arabic. The final word Yosh, my sister's here, so she'll tell you. It's a word that we've heard our father and some other people like a vet from County Kerry use to soothe a cow when hand milking her. So it's not very often used nowadays unless there's some medical reason for the cow to be hand milked. And I suspect it's one of those old words that might sadly die out in the next generation. And yeah, just to say, I've dedicated this chapbook to Alexei Laundry, as you'll see from the beginning. Alexei was like a member of our family, but he died, I think 9 years ago now, as a very young man. He was a gifted archaeologist, a musician, and in true French style, philosopher as well. If Alexei was still alive, I know he would have been disgusted, but maybe not shocked by recent political events throughout the world, such as my encounter with a European friend who turned out to be anti-immigrant in quite a vehement way, as I capture in the next poem, Culture Cafe. You could love the Teutonic fury of his Parnell beard, palatine brow, but when the mouth speaks it is with a strange froth that washes away your right to inheritance in global English, white as a Starbucks mug. Force the fundamentals through your enmeshed tongue, missile strikes, breached charters, but you will fail to infiltrate his plane, only drown in disambiguation, as spent hands leave the infants slip into the iced latte sea. So I suppose my day job, as Pat said, as archaeologist. A few summers ago, I was working on an excavation in Tipperary with my friend Jill, and one evening we went to look for the medieval church site of Derry-na-Flan, which is located on a bog island, as in the Derry-na-Flan Hoard. But we had an interesting diversion on the way, so I know there are a few people here who aren't Irish, so just for context, the Irish travellers are a people with their own language and culture. And traditionally they have a nomadic lifestyle to live in, wagons or I suppose caravans and mobile homes even nowadays. And the Irish government tends to try and force them to settle or stay in designated halting sites. But the travellers seem to be quite gifted at finding in-between places like common land where they can set up camp. Commonage. The rustling map seemed sure that the railway led to the churches, but the black peat had taken it for its own, ironing out the seams for bog ore. So, harnessed in our skirts, we chose a metalled track that canted us into the sun as we entered a piebald world with a pony at every turn. Companionable mares hung heads over dry stone walls, while colts stood tethered, eyes averted. Stacks of turf rose but did not hide the flash of caravans, crude as pig iron, white as blistering skin. And yet we strolled on, loving ponies, yours a well-heeled dun, mine seeped scraps of brass from a sorry face. We met them then against the sun, one rangy, leaning on a slawn, lou in his golden head, long arms to wield the spade, the other bulking bronze in his vest, whose terrier trotted up, a Belfast sink slobbering my hand. The tall one did the talking, directing us through gates, while the other, muzzled, teased the rosary round his neck. Later in the pub, amidst Toby jugs and knick-knacks, we praised the churches, then the ponies, but the shared ground was cut, and one man spoke up as the crowd went dead. "Stay away from them ponies, they're a common breed," he said. So the next poem is based around a photo of a ghostly figure that was all over the news and social media a couple of years ago. Ghost in the Jack Lynch tunnel. He wanders the N40 like a migrant, half remembering into being his form. The flat wool cap from Shandon factory, the jacket bought in Mallow on Mark Day. He wills his lungs soft as floss, palm-lined sugar mice pink, his gorgeous liver red as a cowhouse door, so that he almost scents caviar of horse dung, rush of pig's gore. But he cannot quite recall how life should sound, and the legs come out twisted as a dream, tweed ends weaving into a white dividing line as he cedes to the concrete of the tunnel, forgetting himself in the rat black traffic. So the next poem interweaves the narrative of Frederick Douglass, who actually came to Cork himself in the 19th century, and also the tale of a samurai of African origin, Yatsuke. Well, it interweaves him with my own experience of security in Shannon Airport, I should have said. Parallel North. White stars shoot my eyes in Shannon as I enter the muzzle of US security. Bare feet, bags, babies in bondage flow down parallel lines in estuarine terror. Wave me on across the epoxy floor. Fred peeped from the closet as the captain set to work on Hester's denigration. He told her cross her hands, then hooked them to a joist, so she stood contrapposta, stripped back smooth for the sculptor's lash. Each aphrodisiac scar built a Venus in the making. I pass into the full body scanner. Raise your arms. Us Irish were blacks too, turned inside out, till we evolved, whiter, triter, richer. Farmers' tan blanched by backscattering light, I soar to paradise in orant praise. Yatsuki was tall and strong, we thought he was covered in ink. The Lord ordered him stripped from the waist up, and they scrubbed his skin clean. He was, in fact, quite black. How are we doing? Yeah. So, the next poem is entitled Smurrick, as in Smurrick Harbour on the Dingle Peninsula. So the English form Smurrick, the place name is supposed to draw, so I'm told, on the Old Norse Smjorvik, Butter Harbour, which must reflect Viking influence in the area. Smurrick. You stop on the moon-slick sand and turn to Ballinronnig. There's too much light. A stone's throw between us, then another and another, as you skim back the strand to check the electric blanket. I I stare at the amber smear of window pane and wonder, did those women feel the same stone slump in the belly as the Buttervic was consumed by a northern fleet? A wade shade, slipshodding, curds up into you. Now, the next poem, I have the honour of saying that this is an autobiographical poem, and the man in this poem is actually in the audience, Kamal. So I can't see you, Kamal, but Kamal, well, I've been a very bad student lately, as you know, so I haven't been turning up for the Arabic classes. But Kamal is a brilliant Arabic teacher, as is his wife, Hain. And he's also a brilliant Irishman, I believe. So Kamal has had a big influence on me in teaching me a lot about the culture of Sudan and the Arab world in general. So thank you, Kamal. Modern conversational Arabic. He is a brother, not a father. Serving the girls leaf tea from her thermos, my Arabic teacher talked about her husband, who was courting High Court caliphs into signing refugees' papers, stringing their tails from one night to the next. A good man, and without him, syntax snagged, though between us the ragged ends met, her bride price mucking up the Nile callows, an equation that outwore the cloven years of asylum. The ministerial handshake, ached for, yet awkward in the end, cuffs brushing at a wake. She kittered an empty cup from my hand, snapped her veil. I'm sorry, the trouble's in the east. Then took the scrap of chalk again and pulling back her sleeve, blazed us down the seams of sound succeeding sound, tonguing tacit vowels into the chastity of consonants. As algebra binds the broken parts, she wove a universe into her lace of ligature. Assalamu alaikum. I knew that the words were backwards, that a dagger hung over the aleph. An assassin could stop my glottis with the sadist twist of sod. But follow the letters off the page into her eyes. Don Yazad whirled freer on the azimuth of her brow, who with the wisdom of a scripture seemed to say, you can burn me, but the words will still be spoken. You can shoot me, but my children will live on. You can scorn me, but I am your mother, your daughter, your father, and your brother. So the next poem is inspired by a bronze statue by F.E. McWilliam, a Northern Irish sculptor, in the Crawford Art Gallery. Artemis in a bomb blast. Once she was tripped up on the high street. Rough lads roared as she thrashed in the smother of her skirts, and she swore never to be shamed again. Crossing her legs nicely in the Abercorn Cafe, Artemis cast her gaze upon the crowd. But the bomb blast wrapped itself around her, gel and limb and jag brazing in hate. Her slide run off into the street, till all that seemed to be left were pranks of thumbs and teeth, buttons blasted into eyes, her own eyes into buttons, and the bold as brass taste of burnt flesh. Only the sculptor saw and grafted back in place that final moment of poise, when, elbows arched, sinews drawn, she turned out her soles, flexed her knees, and danced against a bomb in a riot of drapery. How are we? I think I still have 5 minutes, do I? Yeah. Tartile. I am no anthropologist, but I know there is no term in English for tartile. It does not mean to chant or sing the book. Just so, there is no word for your look, as the verse yearns from your holy throat. Stone cold dam, impenetrable as cold stone, dried up Nile that nourishes yet chokes, over generous and turns so as to coax numb earth back to feeling. And I wonder if they did it even to you, the shutting up smooth as clothes of water over stone skin, stitching out a stave to sing a bride, their scissors flashing cleanly as tartile, a sound that has no proper name. So I did a lot of field work in the Aran Islands a few years ago, which was a great pleasure. And this poem, Farewell to Aran, takes its title from a 12th century Irish lyric ascribed to St. Columcille. Farewell to Aran. I know you aren't, but imperfectly, as Clint the Gripe, as land the sea, as a fulmar knows the edges in between wing and sky. For you twist away from my pilgrim prayers in a kidney clutch, yet I can smell the bronze tang of time that keens your breath. And over your breast into nothingness, the giddy dune runs chevaux de frise, far from the cursor's blink at the foot of the page. I have seen a fish caught in a saxifrage net at the bed of a holy spring. Through the lace of a dry stone gap I have pulled the 12 pins. I have measured a limestone hut and reeled off Sing, but I cannot grasp what lies beneath the church of the crippled ridge, at the cusp of a Prinoid's arm, in the cup of an Aaron man's head. Yeah, so should I read one more or two more? Not sure what time I started.
Read two more, go on. Read
Two more, okay. Try to make them short. This one is called Agoraphobia. It's here again, the soft dank fear of muds, as hell is glimpsed in the horizon of a timber floor. Chairs are shoved about, the runnels blocked and boned, the borders of a lifetime disappear. She seeks hope in shadows, the kick pleat of a couch could be a one-night race, but stays put. Pressboard snaps, the desk jerks foot to foot, tremor thickens into terror, she pisses out her quick, then shrieks into the piercing scent of paint. One blatant sprint into the open grave, as clarity skins her raw from head to tail. Just before I read the last poem, I just want to thank Pat and the Munster Literature Centre, all the team, for an amazing programme of events, which I really enjoyed over the last 2 days, and I'm sure the rest of the day will be brilliant too. And thanks also for this opportunity. And I want to congratulate Molly and Rob, of course. And I also, all my friends who are here, I'm very grateful to you for coming and enduring this. Thanks in particular to my husband Joseph and Mark O'Connell for having to listen to me all day yesterday. So, and also Brian Turner and Patricia Smith for listening to me whining beforehand. So thank you all. Yeah. So the final poem I'm going to read is Uig Beach, which is a place in the Isle of Lewis, Scotland. And a hoard of medieval chess pieces was discovered here, the Lewis chessmen. You offer me whiskey for warmth, good Talisker. Unfold my fold-out throne, then your own, and bask in your hollow, spreading your legs wide as Uig Beach divests itself for plunder. All this camp is yours, from the showers to the cunning loins of the dunes, and the fickle sanity of the smiling shore. Wind brags against sea, skins us raw into submission, as we storm up the beach, bare feet crushing shells into a morse, known only by gulls and guillemots, never to be sworn to ivory or metered on brass strip. Falling upon a cower of cowled men from the BBC, bent about a mound, fresh dug as a child's sandpit, strewn with replica chessmen, I see the bishop, complacent in the gale, unreasonably white, untouchable, the hot and bothered queen, palm on cheek, as if struggling to recall baby babble of a foreign land. This camper van could be the moulded silence of 1,000 years. Here you are, brown tusk, berserker within you, grinding down in guarded patience. Muscles beard into questions, razor clams stab the salted flat. Hoard it all while you can. This kiss won't keep us here forever. Thanks.
There are 250 or 300 colleges in the United States that offer MFAs in creative writing, and there are 3 colleges that consistently, continuously leave with each other for the top 3 positions as the best places to go and take an MFA in poetry in particular. Iowa, Michigan, and University of Virginia at Charlottesville. To be admitted to one of those colleges to begin with, you really have to be pretty good. My Minturn is a graduate of Charlottesville, a place that had, Charles Wright, Rita Dove, Gregory Orr in their faculty. as a prize that they want to choose winners themselves to be their students. Please welcome Molly Minturn.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I'm going to just set my timer here. Stopwatch, 15 minutes. All right, here we go. I'd like to thank Patrick so much, the Arts Council, the Munster Literature Center, and Bernadette, who has become a wonderful friend and helped me get to know Cork and has given me lots of advice over the past few months when we met virtually on Facebook, which is terrible, but is also good for things like friendship with new people. So I will just read a few poems from this little chapbook, Not in Heaven. As Patrick said, I've not had a lot of success with my manuscript in the States, so when he called me and told me that I had won, I actually asked him if I was dreaming, because I couldn't believe it. It was a real shock, and I still kind of feel like I'm dreaming, but apparently I'm not, so I'm going to go ahead and read. This first poem is called Amor Fati, and it's about a failed love affair, which is really shocking, because poets never have romantic problems. Amor Fati. So I've done it now. I'm the girl alone in the woods. The horse ran away, and I didn't cry. I can play Beethoven loud as I want, mournful Beethoven to deaf trees. I like the way his music goes back on its word. My own cruelty makes the trees grow, crooked and spindly, little witches. They lean away from me, like the oboes at the top of the score. Oh, they say, to the higher plane, away from me. A dream can take the shape of a life. Bees push themselves soundlessly deep within white petals. The great house and the mist chants, and your face at the end of the hall, saying, be good, without saying anything at all. This poem is about anxiety and parenthood. I have an 8-year-old daughter back at home. Her name is Beatrix. We call her Bibi. I'm very worried about global warming. Feel very helpless about it. And now, school shootings and everything else that we have in America. If anyone wants to take me in here in Ireland, my partner is a lawyer, and he defends the poor, and we're good people, so we're ready to be I'm like the most privileged person ever, and I'm asking for asylum, which is completely ridiculous, but that's the state of things in our lovely country. Anyway, this poem is about my daughter and global warming, and it's called Decadence. The new gold rush is on in Greenland. Our fate is floating among the broken ice caps, failed meringues. Leave the window open all night when the sky could be the open sea for all we care. There is no sun today, but my daughter pulls herself onto my bed to tell me about the storm. I've just been dreaming of her, the two of us, smoking angel dust in a European thrift shop. How beautiful she was in a world without windows, just a yellow dress floating up to the ceiling. I will read a slightly funnier poem. It's about childhood and my brother. His name is Jake. It's called Lady. My brother couldn't wait to be a nun, pulling his pastel baby blanket into a habit, morning spent kneeling in the sun with the fleas. Suffering is for the faithful. I played dress-up to become foreign, a hat from a real funeral, the little black veil let me see as the adults do. Ladies are the opposite of mothers, hidden, but bright. Like watching communion from the last pew, a silver glint, the way they must love behind shades. Some mornings I joined him on the porch, in the far corner near the tennis rackets, our burnt heads unanswered, debtless. This next poem is about my family. I have a strange mystery in my family, which has to do with my father's biological father and how it was not the man we thought he was. So my last name actually shouldn't even be Minturn. So surprise. This poem was written really before we figured that out, but it's about the landscape of my grandparents' house and something that always felt a little bit disturbing beneath the surface. It's called A Child's Garden of Verses. The stairway is blue, hums the hour. Very close, the smell of plastic forsythia. I've been ruthless in the basement and come away with Uncle's shooting cape and the game we called blockhead. Preoccupied with doves, the way their necks retch when they fall. Green cape, swoop, the orderly descent. It makes me woozy for all school chorus. The timbre, the brunette altos. Repeat the word cadence until something awful. This room, frosted bedspread and Latin diploma. I have taken a shine to grandfather's neckties and baby ring. I pocket the funeral, the silver from the converted piano. Outside, our meadow of creamed corn. Please, turn me deciduous, scarlet the parlor, my terrible arms wing up in the dark. More depressing poems. Maybe come back to that at the end. Let's see. This is a poem about after-school programs. One in particular, I don't know if you have these in Ireland, but sometimes parents put their children in programs after classes get out, and it can be with any kind of person that, just people who, I don't know where they necessarily come from, but I took a class, a nature class with a lady who wore a red bandana and took us through the woods every, I can't remember what I say, Wednesday after school. And I learned much later she was just telling us lies about nature. Lies, but it took me a few years to figure that out. So her name was Erica, and she was German, so that was my impression of Germans. I'm just kidding. Anyway, it's called The Natural Order. We were taught that certain types of moss were prehistoric trees, shrunk down over centuries. She led us through the woods after school on Wednesdays as we clutched compasses and pH strips. This fungus will consume you over time if you slip into it, our instructor said. Her blonde hair held back in a scarf, nothing like our mother's. 2 hawks overhead, a fallen striped maple tree. In my pocket, a half-gram cracker with peanut butter. This was the world. A boy far ahead of me in the wide cold, the smudge of his red fleece, the way someone looks underwater in the deep end. If you see an owl in the daylight, chances are it's rabid. On my thumb, a thin scar, pale as a weak flashlight, from my brother slicing through with a can of cheese balls. That day had been hot, and we'd worn swimsuits in the garden. Things easily identifiable, zucchini, cantaloupe, my thumb under the spigot, the back deck resplendent in the middle of July, tiki torches, aluminum chairs, 2 crushed beetles spread across the planks. But here, the forest opened into more of itself, and I was hungry. We paused by a reddening stream. In 2 days, these waters have journeyed all the way from the Arctic. We noted this down, and the stars began lumping together above. In my pocket, a thick mass of crumbs. How much time do I have my phone turned off? A few more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read 3 more poems. This is a prose poem, so it's just a chunk of text. Thematically, it's based a bit on the HBO show True Detective. I don't know if you all have seen it. The first season's very good. Don't watch the second season. It's called Rust. I like the idea of time being flat, that somehow I'm sitting in this chair right now and also riding in a car seat in the back of the Peugeot, examining my mother's head over the seat, the river of her new perm. When I walk alone through the neighborhood and feel like I'm on a soundstage or beneath an enormous bell jar, there is meaning in that. The thought that I have died 1,000 times and wind back up in the same place, circling the same people, doesn't frighten me at all. Certain people are like books I have read before but don't quite remember. Perhaps we all played sardines as children and were pressed together underneath the bed, then parted quickly to find our mothers. When my daughter was born, I looked at her face and said, yes, of course. The other day I made pancakes for just the 2 of us. She sat watching me, and when my back was turned, I felt her adult presence in her chair, like a quickening. I served them up as I have so many times before, golden, flat circles. So, this poem is a bit sad. It's about a friend and mentor of mine who took his own life in 2010. His name was Kevin Morrissey, and thinking of you still, Kevin. It's called Wake. Open your bedroom window in the heart of winter. Wrap the wool blanket around you, the one your brother used to pin you beneath. For hours, held down by the Chesterfield and an ottoman. You resisted until you were underwater, your eyes and lungs filled with light, and you went to sleep on the carpet. When you stopped struggling, you were left alone. Alone now, let the night air in. The snap of it in your lungs like croup. Your mother rocking you in the bathroom, the tub filled with steaming water, how she sang your name again and again as if to call you back. Listen now to the buzzing of electric wires outside your window, the constant murmur, the way you imagine the world must work, the secrets people keep and then tell. It must be like waking to a room full of yellow roses, knowing those truths. Bouquet after bouquet from friends, they did not forget you after all. Like waking to her humming in a steaming room, life coming back to your lungs. And this last poem, I'm debating between 2 of them. I'll read you this poem called Pilgrim. It's the one I've written most recently. Again, it's about a failed love affair. So, good. Life is going well. Actually, it is going well. It's going very well. It's not
Nice
this is about failure. And there's an allusion to the biblical story of Jacob wrestling the angel, which you might catch. And I've been scared to admit this, but my people are from the wrong side of the tracks, I would say. So it's about an Episcopal church, and I just want to say I'm very sorry for what my ancestors may have done. Sorry. Pilgrim. In my early teens, I was an acolyte at the Episcopal church the next town over. I want you to see me in the vestry, snapping up my red gown and pulling the billowing white blouse over my head. I want you to see me walking up the aisles holding the golden crucifix in my gloved hands, the stick above my knees. The light glinted on the cross, the minister blessed the wafers and wine, and I believed none of it. But sitting in my private pew, I breathed in the scent of burning candles and holy oil and felt myself step out of my body. It was you. I sensed you for many years away in my little wooden box. I was no longer lonely. All of this is to say, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite a thrill to be able to say for the first time ever, both Molly and Bernadette will be signing their books outside.